It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages, nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, good afternoon and welcome to the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. As we kick off February already, let's take care of some housekeeping. You can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. And our text line up and running, 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. It appears on the screen here in the studio in real time, just like you text anyone else, and we try to work it into the conversation. The station streams to the TuneIn app, like thousands of other radio stations do, so you can take us anywhere. Great feature. Also, we have Alexa on board. Tell Alexa to play WCRN, and she'll do that. No questions asked. I like that. And I am streaming from the Cameo studio. So the Cameo cam is on, which means you can watch and listen on the station's Facebook page, YouTube channel, or my social media platforms, which would be X and Twitch TV, Facebook, LinkedIn profile, and yes, live to Rumble as well. All right. A lot of ways to listen, a lot of ways to watch. Today, behind the glass, flying the board back at HQ. He'll get you set up and into the studio for two-way talking conversation at 508-871-7000, 871-7000. I wanted to start off, we got a lot to talk about. Grammys last night was interesting in a few things, but this partial shutdown, it's a full-blown power play, guys. So let's frame it the right way. Because the political class is going to try to confuse you with process and jargon and million little details, so you miss the one big truth here. This partial government shutdown isn't a mystery, it's leverage. It's Washington turning a deadline into a weapon. And here's the plain English on this one, folks. A partial shutdown started early Saturday, the 31st, a few days ago, because Congress didn't finish the job on time. When do they? Now the House is preparing to take up a deal with a vote expected tomorrow. And the leadership is signaling they think it ends quickly. But the bigger story isn't, oh no, a shutdown. The biggest story is why this shutdown is happening and what it says about priorities, power, in the way the Democrats are fracturing right in front of us. First, what does partial mean, right? It means some parts of the government are funded and some are not. 6 of the 12 annual appropriations bills were already signed earlier. So we're not talking about a total federal blackout here, but we are talking about major agencies and departments that handle core functions: defense, transportation, HHS, education, treasury, and IRS, and yes, of course, don't forget DHS, among others. They're all caught up in this little lapse. So now the usual line you'll hear is immediate impacts are minimal. That's because a lot of workers are categorized as essential: military personnel, air traffic controllers, certain public safety functions, so they stay on the job. But don't let anyone sell you in that minimal impact spin, guys, because the longer it drags on, the more it turns into a pressure cooker. Furloughs, delayed service, delayed pay, contractor interruptions, and the uncertainty is the point. It's how political leadership squeezes the system to force concessions. So what about the why? This shutdown has become wrapped around the fight over Department of Homeland Security, including immigration enforcement operations and the rules Democrats want imposed on federal agents as a condition of funding. That's not really how it works, folks. Democrats are demanding a package of constraints on immigration enforcement, things like body camera requirements, identification rules, and limits tied to warrants and operational tactics. So understand what's happening on this. This isn't just a budget fight. This is a policy fight jammed into a must-pass funding clock. And that's where the Democrats are dividing, because they want two incompatible things at the same time, right? They want to posture as the party of government competence. Good luck with that. And they also want us to use government funding as a choke point to force operational and political concessions, especially on immigration. I don't know when members of Congress started micromanaging government agencies, but let's put a pin in that. Those two goals don't coexist easily when the clock hits midnight. And look at the split. You can see it in the structure of the Senate deal, right? The Senate passes a framework that funds most of the government, and it carves out a temporary extension for DHS, basically a short patch to buy time to argue about the enforcement rules. That's a compromise move. Leadership saying we'll keep the lights on while we keep negotiating. But inside the Democratic coalition, there's a faction saying, no, we don't want a patch. We want major concessions now, or we're willing to let the shutdown run. Kind of the same old story. We've been here before, right? This is the tactic. In the House, Democratic leadership has been reluctant to provide votes to fast track the Senate measure, meaning the math gets harder. The timeline gets tighter, the shutdown will last longer. So the big takeaway, Senate Democrats move toward a deal. House Democrats hesitate because the party is split between deal and fight later and fight now, even if it breaks things. So there's another angle here too that I want you to hear clearly, and because this is where you separate the adults from the activists in the room. You can debate policy all day long, how immigration enforcement should look, what oversight is appropriate, what guardrails are wise. Fine, debate it. But here's the issue. You don't run a country by holding paychecks and basic operations hostage every time you want a policy win. That's not governance. That is political ransom note. And it raises a serious question. If Democrats generally believe some of these reforms are common sense, why not introduce them as legislation? Fight them on the merits. Debate them like it's supposed to happen. Hearings, votes, amendments, public debate. Why tie them to funding deadlines? Because a funding deadline is where you can force pressure without doing the hard work of persuading the country, without winning your point on merit, winning the debate on merit and common sense. And let's talk about the other side of the battlefield here, because it isn't clean and tidy on the Republican side either, folks. With a narrow House majority, Republicans don't have an unlimited votes to spare type of situation. And you've got conservatives who don't like the architecture of a big deal, who don't like short-term extensions, who think Washington never learns its lesson. So even if leadership says the House will vote Tuesday, and even if leadership is confident, the reality is this is a tight vote environment, and it can get messy fast if either side decides to play games. So let's be honest about the Democrats are trying to do strategically here. They're trying to reframe immigration enforcement as a scandal-driven moral emergency so they can demand strict operational constraints under the banner of accountability. But there's what you, the listener, should ask, okay? Do these demands make the country safer, or do they make enforcement harder? Are they about transparency, or are they about intimidation? of enforcement? Are they aimed at criminals or are they aimed at the agents doing the job? Because there is a difference between oversight and sabotage. And as an America first, law and order country, yes, I'm going to say we are allowed to want secure borders. We are allowed to want enforcement that works. We are allowed to want the federal government to fund basic operations without turning every deadline into a tantrum. Now, what should you tell people who are confused by the headlines? Tell them this. This shutdown is a symptom of a larger sickness. The normalization of using essential government functions as political leverage, especially around immigration enforcement. And now, as the shutdown drags, the question becomes who blinks first? Because if the House passes the Senate framework tomorrow, the shutdown ends quickly. But DHS becomes the next ticking clock here, because the whole point of the short DHS extension is to set up another round of leverage. So I want you to see the pattern. Fund most government, carve out the controversial piece, create a new mini deadline, keep the political pressure alive. Rinse, wash, repeat. That's the loop. So now 2 final points that matter for your life, not just political theater. First, if you know federal workers, contractors, military families, anyone who depends on normal operations, this is not a joke. Even minimal disruption can turn into real hardship, for your pay or scheduling uncertainty stretches out. Second, watch how this gets spun. The messaging is war is already underway. The Democrats want the headlines to be Republicans can't govern. Republicans want the headline to be Democrats are holding funding hostage for immigration politics. But I'll give you the cleanest bottom line here. If you block funding unless you get policy concessions unrelated to the basic continuation of services, you're not keeping government accountable. You're using government as cuddlage. And it's exactly why people are sick of Washington. So does the House actually hold the vote Tuesday? Does Democrat leadership maintain that we won't help fast track a position, forcing a slower pathway to more risk, or do few Republicans defect, making passage harder with a tight majority? I'll close with this. The functioning government doesn't mean endless government. No, it means the people we elect to do the basic job we hire them to do. We have to take our first break here. We'll come back on the other side. Stick with us. 2 and 2, folks.
Did you know by age 35, most people start to notice the effects of declining hormone levels? Symptoms include lack of energy, less focus, decreased sex drive, weight gain, and poor quality sleep. Twist 25 DHEA cream helps men and women 35 and up to maintain vitality, youthful vigor, enhanced mood and focus, and a better night's sleep. As a base building block for hormones, DHEA gives the body a key foundation it uses to make hormones. Visit twist25.com to learn more, or call 888-489-4782. 888-4TWIST 25.
When it's time to move, don't just move, Mighty Move. At Mighty Movers, they have been helping families relocate safely and affordably since 2017. Whether you're going across town or across state lines, their experienced crew brings muscle and the hustle to make your move stress-free and budget-friendly. They specialize in local and long-distance moves, from cozy apartments to big family homes. They handle it all with care, speed, and professionalism. Got a piano, gun safe, or hot tub? No problem. Their specialty moving services are designed for the heavy stuff most movers just won't touch. So why settle for basic move when you can move mighty? Call 978-793-6165 or visit mightymoversma.com, mightymoversma.com, and start your move the mighty way. Mighty Movers, moving you forward 1 mighty mile at a time.
The best Italian cuisine served by some of the nicest folks you'll ever meet is at Ziti's Italian Trattoria. It's fine Italian cooking at the Speedway Shopping Center, 290 Turnpike Road in Westboro. It's like sitting down with your family for an authentic home-cooked Italian meal. From intimate dinners to catering for events of all sizes, from pizzas and calzones to classic Italian dinners, every meal at Ziti's is one you'll remember. Head on down to Ziti's, 290 Turnpike Road in Westboro.
All right, folks, welcome back here. This second segment of the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN, where you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Of course, you can text us at 617-297-8388. It appears on the screen here in the studio in real time, and we try to work it into the conversation. All right. So the shutdown, what say you on that? Your input on that, your feeling on that, and what exactly is going on? We see the same thing over and over again. And the thing about it is, for the umpteenth millionth time, ICE is a federal agency, law enforcement agency, that has a charter, a purpose, and it's all by statute. Just like we don't get to pick and choose the federal laws that we follow, we don't get to pick and choose how our federal agencies do those jobs. That lies in the process that is the United States government. ICE was created by statute and their functions laid out, and then they have set policies and procedures. And if you don't like those or you want to change it, there's a process. But it seems like the left feels, I don't like the statute, I can tear it down. I don't like the federal law, so we just ignore it. I don't like ICE's function, so I'm going to dox them, spit on them, assault them, box them in, cut them off while driving, interfere with the duly authorized duties, all of this. It's just not how you do it. It's not the way it's supposed to be done. What say you? 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. So last night was interesting because it was the Grammys, and I'm not a big Grammys person. I mean, I like the music. I don't get into the award shows, honestly. So who cares? I'm more the Ricky Gervais thing on this. But last night's Grammys were a perfect snapshot of what's gone wrong with celebrity culture in America. See, the Grammys aren't supposed to be a political rally. They're not. I mean, for so long, Hollywood has lived in this bubble where they assume that they are right. I talked about this the other day, the arrogance. Just, they're right. And if you don't agree with them, you're just wrong or too stupid or undereducated or whatever the case may be. But Grammys aren't supposed to be a political rally. They're supposed to be the Olympics of music, performance, songwriting, production, excellence, wins, losses, a little fun. But instead, what we get, a night where a big chunk of the coverage is not about melody, harmony, musicianship, or craft. It's about slogans and political scolding, the lecturing, ice out pins, the onstage shots, the applause lines, and even profanity directed at federal law enforcement on national television. So let's be clear. Anyone in America can have an opinion. Sure. That's not the question. Not even close to the question. The question is, why should the public treat Grammy winners like they're statesmen? They aren't famous or even infamous because they're political scholars or even particularly intelligent when it comes to policies. They're not famous for their expertise in this area. They're famous for the craft. And we can respect the craft without surrendering our judgment of the celebrity. That's just the way it is. That's not what it's supposed to be. Here's the difference in your life. If you're an electrician, you don't ask you to run foreign policy, do we? No. If you're a nurse, we don't ask you to draft immigration law. If you're a pilot, we don't ask you to balance the federal budget. We ask you to do your job well. But in celebrity America, a person wins a trophy and suddenly they're lecturing half the country like they're the Secretary of State. And last night, the political headline was opposition to ICE. You had stars using the microphone to push ICE out messaging. Some of it framed as compassion. Some of it was framed as condemnation. And at least one instance delivered it in a way that's basically, here's the slogan, here's a curse word, applause, please. Now, and I'm going to say something that used to be common sense. That's not leadership, that's performance. Leadership requires dealing with trade-offs. It requires acknowledging reality, border pressure, criminal networks, the difference between legal and illegal immigration. Oh, they want to blur that line big time. And they purposely use the verbiage they use and even lecture you if you use the absolute correct term, illegal alien. It's in the statute. The constraints of local services, the safety of communities, and yes, due process and humanity, those are the hard topic. Those require knowledge and detail. A slogan doesn't. And when you put a camera at the microphone and shut something like F ICE, you're not educating the public, you're inflaming the public. Now, if you're sitting at home watching this, you have every right to ask, why are they doing this? Here's why. Because the Grammys are not just an award show anymore. They're a content factory. The real currency is viral clips, trending moments. Look at me headlines in politics, especially politics that divide. That has become a reliable way to extend the news cycle for 48 hours. And it's not just anti-ICE, you had anti-Trump jokes baked into the broadcast too, right? Shots from the host that turned into their own controversy. Trevor Noah. We'll talk about that in a second. Here's the part nobody in the industry wants to say out loud. It may feel righteous in the moment, but it can be bad business. Music is a mass market product. Touring is a mass market product. You want the biggest tent possible. Suburban moms, working guys, college kids, older fans, younger fans, people who agree with you, people who don't, people who don't care. When you turn your stage into a political sermon, you don't expand the tent, you shrink it, folks. And the fans who leave, they don't always announce it. They don't send an email. They just stop streaming. They don't buy the ticket. They decide to go to a different show. They stop wearing the merchandise. That's the real world consequences of turning music into politics. Now, a few people, Reba McEntire, Dolly Parton, I've talked about them before. They're very astute when it comes to this. Why would I turn half my fan base off? They know they want to, you don't know their politics because they don't lecture us on their politics. And it's not just fans. Sponsors don't like volatility either. Venues don't like controversy. Promoters don't like unpredictability. Brand partners don't like being dragged into somebody's cause. Ask Bud Light, right? Ask some of these companies that have been in the middle of a controversy that they didn't intend to be. So you can cheer the moment, but you may quietly pay for it in the next 2 years in negotiations and bookings. Now, I want to remind you of something Ricky Gervais said when he hosted the Golden Globes a few years back. Remember that? He basically told the room, you people are in no position to lecture the public. You don't know the real world. And if you win, thank your agent, thank your God, and get the blank off the stage. He also nailed the hypocrisy of this by telling them, look, if ISIS started a streaming service, these same moralizers would call their agents. In other words, don't preach purity when the business runs out of money and access. That's the exact vibe last night, in my opinion, because these speeches aren't coming from people who will ever deal with the cost of their ideas. They don't have to patrol a neighborhood. They don't have to arrest anyone. They don't have to sit with the victims, and they don't have to face the consequences of policy failure. They make a statement, they get applause, and they go to the after party. And then the rest of America, the people who live in the real world, deal with the mess. So here's my view. If an artist wants to speak politically, they can. America allows it. But America also allows this. We don't have to care. We can respect your voice as a singer and ignore your voice as a political oracle. We can love your music and reject your sermon. And if you insist on turning your show into a rally, don't be shocked when your fan base starts voting with their wallets. And that's not censorship. That's just marketplace, guys. And it's not even personal. It's practical. People want a break. People want music. People want inspiration. They don't want to be lectured by millionaires who fly private while telling working families what the right politics are. And here's a final point. The more celebrity culture insists on doing politics, the more it cheapens the art. Because now you're not judged by the quality of the music. You're judged by which tribe you feed. That poison for creativity, that poison for mass appeal, and it's poison for the country. So yes, I'm with Gervais on this, on the core principle that is, do the show, celebrate the music, thank your team, and move on. If you want to do politics, run for office, debate policy with details, take questions, face consequences. Otherwise, thank your agent and, get off the stage. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. I think we can go to the phones real quick. Mark's waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you?
Yeah, I got real quick. What I got, about a minute?
Yeah, go ahead. Minute and a half.
Yeah, okay. Billie Eilish, last night, Grammy Awards. Is that a correct name, Billie Eilish?
Yeah, something like that. I really don't know.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, close enough for government work.
Yeah.
So anyway, she gets her best female artist of the year or whatever thing she gets. She gets up on a stage and she also gets the award and she says, F ICE, and dig this. Then she says, nobody's illegal on stolen land. Billie Eilish, where do you live?
Yep.
Where do you live, in Mexico? Where do you live, in Zimbabwe? Or do you have your permanent residence in the United States? The bottom line is this. You don't try to make sense out of nonsense, because everything she's saying is nonsense.
Yep.
And if she does live in the United States, and this is her permanent residence, she's a hypocrite.
100%. She has a very beautiful mansion, so give it back. Why don't you turn it over to whoever you think it's stolen from? Thank you, Mark, for the call. Appreciate that. Land isn't stolen. We've had treaties. We've purchased. Louisiana purchased. We purchased Alaska. We've made these deals, so it's not stolen land. And how far back do you go? That whole thing never makes sense. It doesn't make sense in common sense, logically, and of course, illegally it doesn't. But we got to take our mid-show break here, so stick with us. We'll be back in two, folks.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Smear, and here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. Expect partly to mostly sunny skies with highs around 30 this afternoon. We'll drop back into the single digits overnight tonight, and tomorrow it's more sunshine and highs in the 30s. Now, as cold as that is, temperatures this week are still expected to be a lot milder than what you had last week. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spear, and you can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
More live and local radio is next. Stay tuned to Radio Central 830 WCRN. WCRN, where the left and the right meet in the middle. Whether you lean left, lean right, or just want to stay informed, WCRN has you covered with diverse voices, lively debates, and thought-provoking discussions. You'll hear it all right here. Radio Central.
Hi, I'm Lee Gaudette of the Gaudette Insurance Agency, a third-generation family business based in Whitensville with branch office locations in Grafton, Shrewsbury, Westboro, and Southborough. We are a full-service independent agency offering all aspects of insurance to businesses, families, and individuals. We are in the peace of mind business. Call, click, or come in to see us at any of our locations for a free assessment of your insurance needs. Also, listen to Radio Central WCRN every Friday morning at 9:30 for the Gaudette Insurance Show.
Paul Harvey captivated us with his unique blend of wit, curiosity, and that unforgettable sign-off. WCRN Radio is proud to reintroduce Paul Harvey and the rest of the story. Weekday mornings at 9, only on WCRN.
I'm Lee Gaudette from Gaudette Insurance and the Gaudette Insurance Show. You're listening to Radio Central, AM 830 WCRN.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the second half of the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. Reminding you, you can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. What say you? 508-871-7000. Our text line 617-297-8388. And to Mark's point on this, Billie Eilish, I think it is, she was bleeped, but she said F ice. And she gets up there, and this is the other thing to the monologue I just did on all of this, is somebody should have the guts to tell these people. I know they're surrounded, these celebrities and Grammy winners and singers and actors and all that are surrounded with ES people and people on their payroll to make them feel good and all that. But somebody should really have a talk with them, because they should tell them, when you do this, the whole world can see it. And when you say things that really illustrate your ignorance on whether the history of the country or the law or anything, it could stick with you. Because not only do people not only get lectured by a singer or an actor, but when they prove to have no idea what they're talking about, it just further hurts their image, does it not? So she says, thank you so much. I can't believe this. Everyone else in the category is so amazing. I love you so much. All good. That's the performance stuff, right? She was standing next to Fines, I think it was. But she says, I feel honored every time I get to be in this room. As grateful as I feel, I honestly don't feel like I need to say anything. But no one is illegal on stolen land. And yeah, it's just really hard to know what to say and what to do right now. And I feel really hopeful in this room. And I feel like we just need to keep fighting and speaking up and protesting. And our voices really do matter. And the people matter. And F ice. And that's all I'm going to say. Sorry. Thank you so much. First of all, that was incredibly eloquent. All kidding aside. What are you talking about? You're just showing the world you don't have any kind of comprehension about the history of the country and where land came from. And to Mark's point, where is that mansion of yours and the other home and all that? Where is it? Why'd you buy it? Why do you live there? Why didn't you take your millions and buy big chunks of land and give it to whoever you think it was stolen from? Because we have treaties and we have purchases. And that's the way the world has worked. How far do you want to go back? It just makes no sense, folks. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Let's go to the phones. Mark is, Ken, I meant to say, is waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, what say you?
Joe. So right, but so 20th century.
Say that again. What about the 20th century?
When you say that's not the way it is or the way it should be. Yes, you're correct. Those were the rules in the 20th century. We don't live in the 20th century anymore. They're fighting dirty. Anything holds. Their knuckles.
Mm-hmm.
If too many of the public are just living their life, no. Oh, that's ugly. I don't like that. Well, then you start asking, where do you want to go?
Mm-hmm.
You want the French Revolution? And start showing pictures to them of the French Revolution. Is that what you want? Because the people you're going along with, that's what they want.
Drag out the guillotines. Look, again, Ken, I think when they get up there and they say these things, it just, people with common sense, working knowledge of history and the law think, what a jamoke. They really don't understand what they're talking about. So it hurts them, I think, in the long run. Like I said earlier, they're not going to get emails. Nobody's going to go on. Well, I guess some people go on and post something, but most of the people, right? Most people just say, I'm not going to, buy their albums or stream their music or go to their movies or whatever the case may be. And they'll probably see it. How many times have you seen a story, whether it's in Variety or something like that, where some artists' sales are down, tickets are down? Now, is it always because something they said politically? I don't know. It's hard to tell. You'd have to spend millions in polling and research to figure that out. But I think it might have something to do with it. Bottom line on this issue, Ken, I've always said, just what you're there for. You're there because you created a fantastic piece of music or you performed it beautifully or whatever it is. Focus on that. And if you want to do into politics, run for office or become an activist outside of that venue. Just advice. They don't have to do it. Bill Maher, a few days before the Grammy, I think I saw clips. I don't watch him all the time, but I see the clips of him, and he's basically telling the Democrats, yeah, you can say whatever you want, do whatever you want, but you're screwing your party and you're talking yourself out of winning elections. All right. Stick to the issues.
That's what he called them?
No, what?
Did you catch what he called them?
No, what did he call them?
Communist.
I didn't catch that. Tommy?
Bill Maher said it.
Yeah, Ken, what did he say? I didn't catch it.
He called them communists.
Oh, commies. All right, I was hearing Tommy. Commies, yeah. Well, I mean, it is the National Democratic Socialist Party or something, and show me the line between socialism and communism. That's very, 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 very thin line. So yeah, they are. That's basically it. So I don't know. I mean, like I said, there's a few artists out there I know that purposely don't do that. Dolly Parton's one, Reba McEntire's another. Was it Jordan? Who was the big sports sneaker seller? He said, look, Republicans, conservatives buy sneakers too. One of those guys. They got it. Those were people thinking in reality, thinking in business, thinking with common sense. Why would I alienate? Look, these people are not famous because they're incredible statesmen, right? We're not talking Churchills here. We're talking they're artists who perform music or write music or they act. And actors, that's the biggest one, Ken. Their whole function in life is to deliver words somebody else has written for them. And they often prove to us that they really don't have the ability to think or function intelligently on their own. Somebody has to write their words for them because they don't make sense if they don't.
Joe, you proved my point. Michael Jordan.
Oh, that was it, Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan, 20th century.
Yeah.
Have to fight on their turf. They break everything up into 10 to 15 second words or videos. We have to fight on their turf and show them in 10 to 15 seconds where they're headed and ask the simple question, do you want to destroy America? Yes or no?
Yeah, but the thing is, Ken, I think in their mind, they hate America. They tell them, how bad we are, how bad the white colonizers are, and how all this. They're not offering solutions and how bad it is, but they're not willing to leave, right? They're not willing to run for office, per se. Some might. Some people, we finally saw some people put their money where their mouth is and leave the country. But then take Rosie O'Donnell. She leaves the country and probably gets more airtime now that she's in Ireland than she did when she was living in California for some reason. I don't know why these news directors or producers keep thinking we should put Rosie on. Is it because she's regurgitating their talking points and stuff? So they figure, hey, this is cool. I don't know. But how about this? You went to Ireland. Stay in Ireland. Your island's problem now. We don't need to be lectured by you from another country about our country. Yeah, she's still a citizen. I get all that. I just don't understand why we're seeing her on the TV all the time.
You're describing 15 to 20% of the population, a distinct but very loud minority.
Yeah.
You need to capture the other 30 to 40% who are just wanting to hide in a shell and not play politics. They think they can hide this one out. They can't. The fight is now, and you have to win them over.
Yeah.
And one by one, we have to do that. And we just don't, the way I look at it, how do you spell variety? How do you spell that? No, I don't follow either. Live your life by your values, and in a distinct and calm way, convince others to also.
Yeah. stick to your sphere of influence, right? Your family, your friends, your partner, maybe your children or your parents for that matter. Again, you know, these people, that's not what they're famous for infamous for in some cases. So we'll see. I mean, you know, to your point on this, that percentage of people that you're talking about, and no, you can't just hide it out, because I think we're at a crux here of how things are going to play out. But we're seeing these tactics that are being used, you know, the shutdown. They want to actually micromanage how ICE do their job. But let's back it up to the fact, again, that that's not your role as a protester, not even your role as a citizen. When you're driving down 190 or, I don't know, you're whatever in New Hampshire, and you see a state trooper, he has a car pulled over, do you pull over in front of that car to get out to tell that trooper what they can and can't do? My favorite one, Ken, is when you hear them yelling, "Show me a warrant." Who the hell are you to tell me I got to? They don't have to show you anything. You have nothing to do with what's happening there. And believe it or not, there are procedures in place if a police officer steps out of bounds. As a matter of fact, they can be in danger of losing what's called qualified immunity if they step outside of the scope of their job. In legal terms, we call it respondeat superior. Whatever you do in your master's job or task is as if the master does it himself. But once you do that and you step out of it, police officers can lose qualified immunity. But there's this procedure if they mess up or if they overstep. For one, your case is going to be dismissed if your rights were violated. But these people who get into the face of law enforcement trying to tell them how to do their job or how horrible they are, I don't understand your end goal. Being facetious, of course I do. But the point is, that's not your role, folks. Stay in your lane. And you can record all you want. You can hold whatever signs. But to the point of, well, you can park your car to block them in. And no, you can't. You're impeding their performance, their operation. Final thought, Ken, against the clock, real quick.
You said a lot, but only one word matters. ICE. That's the battle.
That is the battle. Thank you for the call, Ken. Appreciate it. Always appreciate it, actually. All right, folks, we're going to take a third and final break here on the Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830, WCRN, Radio Central 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Back in two, folks. Stick with us. Life is full of changes. Some we choose, some we don't. But how we handle change, that makes all the difference. I'm Joe Mangiacotti, and I'm bringing you Handling Change, a brand new show here on WCRN. Every week, we'll tackle life's biggest challenges and profile a local business or service that can help you navigate them. From career shifts to health, finances, and family. Whatever life throws your way, we've got you covered. Don't miss Handling Change, Thursdays at 10 a.m. on Radio Central, WCRN 830 a.m., where New England comes to talk.
Hi, I'm Dr. Eddie Arus from the Vascular Care Group with offices in Worcester and Sturbridge. I meet patients every week who tell me they've stopped doing the things they love, walking with friends, standing at their grandchild's soccer game, even going on vacation, all because of painful varicose veins, swelling, or fatigue in their legs. Now picture this, the same patient a few weeks after treatment, walking comfortably, smiling more, planning their next trip. That transformation is what drives me. We offer safe, minimally invasive outpatient treatments that get you back to life quickly. No overnight stay, no long downtime, just compassionate care and results that last. Because life's too short to sit on the sidelines when you could be living it fully. If vein problems are holding you back, let's change your story together. Call the Vascular Care Group or visit thevascularcaregroup.com to schedule your consultation. I'm Dr. Eddie Arus, and your next chapter starts with healthy legs.
Dr. Satya Mitra has journeyed from a childhood of poverty and homelessness to a successful career as a financial advisor, motivational speaker, and community leader. Now inspired by his guru, he uses his experiences to positively affect the lives of underprivileged people. We strive to house our blindness, poverty, homelessness, female empowerment, and good citizenship initiatives within the Joy Guru Humanitarian Center. If you wish to contribute or know of deserving persons or initiatives that could use our assistance, please contact us at 508-641-8441.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the fourth and final segment on this Monday edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. Hey, reminding you, you can always text us at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388, or join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Also, just one more thing. Maybe kind of connected, right, to the Grammys and all this. It's this critic versus America with the Melania split that's going on, right? So we had Melania debuted documentary, and my understanding it's one of the most expensive documentaries ever made about Melania Trump, and it's getting absolutely hammered by the professional critic class. Well, the ticket buying public is saying the complete opposite. Right. So the headline Rotten Tomatoes, it's, I think, 11% with the critics. Again, this is a situation where clearly the critics are judging who it's about, who they're connected to, all about that, not the quality of the documentary. Just like the policies. If they're a Trump policy, they're horrible. But when those same policies, and sometimes done to even worse degree than the criticism under Trump, they're fine because it was their guy in the Oval. I don't know if that made sense, but you know what I'm saying. Because you've seen these. I always get a kick out of them when I see somebody, one of these YouTubers or whatever, TikTokers or whatever the hell they are, on the street. And they mislead them a little bit and ask them about Trump and stuff, and then we'll say something like, well, you tell me, are these racial comments? Are they, very racist? And they'll read a quote. And, oh, yeah, that's absolutely racist. Because of the setup, they think it's Donald Trump, but they're reading Joe Biden quotes. You know them all. The 7-Eleven, the urban jungle, all of those things, what he talked about busing and everything. Barack Obama, the first articulate, clean black person in politics, all those very absolutely racist things that Joe Biden said. And then they tell them at the end of it, oh, I'm sorry, actually, those aren't Trump. Those, I was reading you Biden's quotes. And you can see the buffer going, and they can't quite comprehend that. I think this is what we're seeing with Melania. So the headline on Rotten Tomatoes, right? Only 11% of the critics think it's decent at all. And 99% of the verified audience, now that means, what does that mean, verified audience? Well, people who actually bought a ticket. So 11 to 99, that's not a difference of opinion. That's a full-blown cultural chasm here. And they came up with this whole verified thing years ago because of that. So, people said, well, wait a minute. The critics are seeing this. So they said, well, we're going to do this in such a way that people actually buy the ticket, spend their money, go see it. What do they think of it? That's where the verified audience meter came in. Now, I want to be fair and smart about this because the opposition will try to spin that. The critics say, see, it's bad. The fans will say, see, the critics are corrupt. But the real story here, those numbers don't measure just a movie, they measure a country. It's a kind of a barometer of the country's feeling on this, because the critics score is basically a vote among a small ideological professional class. Same kind of people we see at the Grammys, right? People who live in the same social world, the same news world, the same career incentives. Meanwhile, the verified audience score is a vote by people who spent money and time and showed up. They showed up to be informed and or educated, or a combination of the two. And the reason you're seeing 11 versus 99, it's not that complicated. The critics aren't reviewing the film, they're reviewing the subject, the person. Fox put a piece out, and you can see in that language, critics are dismissing it as propaganda. That's not film critique, folks. That's political labeling. A real film critic is, it's slow, it's thin, it lacks access, it's repetitive, it doesn't deliver new material. That's a critic. But when the first instinct is propaganda, what they're saying is, we don't want this story told at all. Don't go see it. So you might learn something we don't need you to know. Now fold in the piece from the Epic Times, because it gives you another angle, right? This film isn't pitched as some ideological manifesto. It's pitched as a process documentary. The behind-the-scenes mechanics, the preparation, the run-up to Inauguration Day. So that's what the documentary is about. They bill it with never revealed before. And this was cameras on her, cameras on the whole process from winning the election up to Inauguration Day. So let's ask the adult question. If critics hate the subject, is it even possible for this film to get a fair shake? Probably not. Because here's what we know happened. The world premiere was held in Washington at the JFK Kennedy for the Performing Arts. And the Epic Times notes this event as the world premiere with Beckman and Brett Ratner in attendance. Right? So step back. This is exactly the pattern you've seen for years. If a film flatters a left-coded figure, critics treat it as important. If a film humanizes a right-coded figure, critics treat it as dangerous or lying or conspiracy and that kind of thing. You know the language that's used. Then the public responds the only way it can, with the wallet and the ticket. That's how they do that. Now, I wanted to, before we ran out of time today, I didn't want to get into this because I think this is a pretty big case. If you missed it, let me give you the background. New York, this happened in New York, and this is going to echo across medicine, law, and politics, because a jury just drew a line, and the medical industry is feeling it now. So in Westchester County, Supreme Court in White Plains, they have awarded $2 million to a young woman, Fox Varian. She's now 22 years old, but she detransitioned. So, you know, it's called transition, right? If you go from one to another. If you're a trans female, it means you were born biological male and you transition to female, vice versa. If you're a trans male, you were born a female and transitioned to a male. So this person detransitioned after receiving a double mastectomy, get this, at the age of 16.
Ouch!
Yeah.
Joe, can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Can I transition to a millionaire? No, a multi-millionaire.
Well, if you're going to do it, you might as well go. Why not billionaire at that point?
Let's be a multi-billionaire.
Exactly. And I love when the debate comes to, well, I identify as a person of color or an Asian or what? Can you? No, because that's not your DNA. But that's a bigger conversation.
Wasn't there a movie back in the 80s where the star was born a poor black child?
Was that Steve Martin?
That was Steve Martin.
Yeah, the jerk, right? Yeah, and he made all that money, and he got his family the bigger house, which was the exact cabin, just a larger one.
Joe, what's the title again?
Folks,
what was the title of the movie?
The Jerk.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, The Jerk. It was a good movie. But see, this here, right? The jury found that psychologist Kenneth Einhorn and surgeon Dr. Simon Chin liable for medical malpractice. And what's interesting is, I know we've brought this topic up on this show. I've talked about this with with guests. I've talked about it with
I was
callers.
sitting here.
Absolutely. And I said it's going to be a matter of time when you start doing this, because they're allowing minors that we don't let vote. We don't let them buy liquor. We don't let them decide almost anything, right? You can't, a nurse can't even give them an aspirin at school without parental.
Can't sign a contract.
It can't sign a contract. But you're doing life-altering surgery. And don't forget on this particular topic, guys, I've said it before and I still maintain it, as in anything, always follow the money. Because when you transition, you are on a life, for the rest of your life, you're on medications and hormones and treatment. And there's going to be hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars spent for that transition. Because
the money train.
Absolutely. And there's no end to it. When you're fighting the DNA of a body to be and perform that the blueprint of the body, meaning the DNA, isn't written, you have to service that over and over again. And message me if you want to know the details that I'm talking about, but you have to actively every day do what's necessary for that identity that you take. So they found him liable for medical malpractice. And the damages were reported it's at $1.6 million for past and future pain, and then another $400,000 for future medical expenses, because that's it. So they've had a double mastectomy. So now the doctors at 16 removed their breasts, and now they want to go back to what biological sex they are. Now let's slow down and say this clearly, because the spin machine will try to turn it into something it isn't. This verdict was not a national referendum on politics. It was not a cable news shouting match. A jury wasn't asked to rule an ideology. They were asked a narrow, serious question. Did these professionals meet the standard of care when they recommended, approved, and performed a reversible procedure on a minor? That was the question in front of the jury. And the jury's answer said, no, they did not. They did not. This did not do this in this matter, because according to multiple reports, this is the first detransitioner medical malpractice case to go all the way to a jury verdict and a win. In other words, this wasn't settled quietly. This went the distance. A jury heard the testimony and said, we're holding people accountable. Informed consent isn't a signature, it's a process. That will wrap up today's edition of the Joe Mangiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. Back tomorrow afternoon at 1 o'clock. Same bad time, same bad channel. Don't forget to follow me at Joe Mangi Show and subscribe to the podcast. Joe out, folks.